Hi, and welcome to our second asynchronous module for SLS 312. Today we are going to continue our focus on the text, and specifically we're going to discuss various implications for text selection. Hedgecock and Ferris state that text selection is critical to the effectiveness of intensive reading lessons. Teachers should thus consider a variety of issues before committing their own and their students' time and energy to a specific text. So they also say two factors that we would want to consider when we go to select a text for a lesson are student interest and also their level of proficiency in the L2. So likely as you get to know your students, you will come to find out what they are interested in reading. And this could very well play an important part in choosing a text. And also their proficiency in the L2. We don't want to choose a text that is far beyond their ability level or one that is much too easy and that won't challenge them sufficiently. So some other considerations are going to be text length, extra textual characteristics like pictures, vocabulary, morphology, syntax, and cohesive devices. And we're going to cover each one of those briefly here. We'll then go through a text analysis activity in which I'll show you various tools for looking more closely at each of these different aspects. So some bottom-up text selection considerations, apart from our student interest, would be text length. Ideally, as teachers, we need to find a balance between texts that are too long and too daunting for our students' reading experience, and also with texts that do not challenge our students enough. Another thing we want to keep in mind is how long of a class period we have, and whether or not you want to teach that text within one class period or assign it over a series of days or weeks. Another bottom-up text selection consideration would be extra textual characteristics included in the text itself or added to the text. Some of these could be vocabulary glosses. For example, in many second language textbooks, a vocabulary word is either italicized or bolded, and a short definition is provided next to the reading. Pictures can also play a big role in helping students to comprehend a text. And so would illustrations, subtitles, or subheadings, and headings. Another consideration would be the vocabulary in the text. Hedgecock and Ferris mentioned that while early research suggested that a text with about 5% of unknown vocabulary was an appropriate level for students, more recent research places that estimate close to 2%. In other words, ideally our students would know approximately 98% of the words in a text that we are presenting them. Now, there are a number of aspects of vocabulary to take into consideration, and thankfully we have various tools available to analyze the vocabulary difficulty of a particular text, and we'll look at a few of those today. Next, we want to consider the morphology and the syntax of the text itself. So, for instance, as we scan the text, we may want to note whether there's a lot of complex derivational morphology in the text itself, and whether we may want to highlight or point out certain inflectional or derivational morphemes that could help students to read the text more efficiently. Syntactic complexity is also very important. It has to do with sentence length and also the complexity of the sentence. Are there many passive sentences, many subordinating clauses? Another consideration would be the use of cohesive devices. So specifically, we want to make sure that the text includes connecting words and phrases that would help to serve as a roadmap for student comprehension. Sometimes in specific second language learner created texts, there are several short, simple sentences together. However, without the use of cohesive devices, texts that only consist of short, simple sentences may actually be more difficult to read. So just something to keep in mind as we go forward. At this point, I'm going to introduce you to the text analysis activity for today's asynchronous module. The first step is for you to choose an English text of at least 300 words. We're going to use an English text for this activity just because many of the tools available online are for English. However, I would be very excited to see lesson plans based on other languages, reading lesson plans based on other languages, and if you happen to find similar tools for the language that you are interested in teaching, if you could please let me know, and I would be very happy to include those in a future video. So after you have selected your text, and of course, ideally it would be a text of interest to your students and of an appropriate length for the lesson plan you are envisioning, I'd like you to skim the text to capture its content. And do you think specifically that the text would appeal to your students? And why or why not? The next step would be to use the readability tool in Microsoft Word or the online text readability calculator, and I have the web address here, to calculate or report the following readability statistics. And I will show you how to do this here. So the statistics we're interested in are the number of words in your text, the number of characters, the number of sentences, the number of words per sentence, the number of characters per word, and then two particular values. One is the Flesch reading ease statistic, and the other is the Flesch-Kincaid grade level statistic. Now, a brief note about the Flesch-Kincaid reading ease formula and the Flesch reading ease statistic. The way that these are calculated, and it can be done by hand, although thankfully we have Microsoft Word and some online tools to help us do it, as it will save us time. But essentially, the Flesch-Kincaid reading ease formula equals 0.4 times the average sentence length plus 12 times the average number of syllables per word minus 16. So the average sentence length would be the number of words in your text divided by the number of sentences, and the average number of syllables per word would be the total number of syllables in your text divided by the total number of words. The output of the Flesch-Kincaid reading ease formula is going to be a number, it's going to be actually a number between 0 and 12, and that number will correspond to a particular grade level in the United States. So for example, if your Flesch-Kincaid reading ease formula value is 6.0, that would correspond to 6th grade in the United States. In other words, that 6th graders in the United States should be able to read that text with ease. A Flesch-Kincaid reading ease score of 12.0 would be the equivalent of a 12th grade text. Now, the Flesch reading ease score is calculated by taking 206.835 minus 1.015 times the average sentence length minus 84.6 times the average number of syllables per word. The value you will get from the Flesch reading ease formula will be a number between 0 and 100. Higher scores, so those numbers closer to 100, would mean that the text is easier, and lower scores would imply more difficult reading. Hedgecock and Ferris mentioned that most text reading ease scores fall somewhere between 6 and 70. They mentioned that Time magazine generally scores around the low 50s, whereas Reader's Digest scores around 65. Now, first we're going to look at how to calculate these statistics in Word. And I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint to go ahead and show you how we'll do this. First, here is the Word document that you'll be downloading from our class website and completing for today's asynchronous module. So after you have chosen an English text, you would paste that here. Make sure you comment here in question number 2 on the possible appeal of this text, the content of the text for your students. And then we would go ahead and we have this same graph here that was in the PowerPoint. So to calculate the statistics in Word, I'm going to pull up the text I have selected, which is called Recipe for Murder. It's a story that we are going to read in class together in about a week and a half. And I've selected it because I do think it will be very interesting for you, and I think it likely is going to prove to be of an appropriate level. So to get the statistics that we're interested in, first we're going to go to the Word menu and click Preferences. Okay. After Preferences, we'll be choosing Authoring and Proofing Tools, and then going to Spelling and Grammar. So let me go ahead and go back to my text, Recipe for Murder. I'm going to go to Word up here, Preferences, and as I mentioned, we have the Spelling and Grammar tool, which is right under Authoring and Proofing Tools. I will click there, and then you want to make sure that under Grammar, you have checked Show Readability Statistics. So then we can go ahead and close that out. Now we'll actually go up to Tools and then click on Spelling and Grammar. Again, Spelling and Grammar. And please bear with me as I'm going to, it will take you through a spelling and grammar check. I have already done this, so the words I'm ignoring are not misspelled. Many of them are French, as you will come to see. So quickly as I go through this, and it will be good for you to go through it as well. So hopefully when you typed your document or copied and pasted it from the internet to make sure there's no misspellings. So now you'll get a notice that your spelling and grammar check is complete. And here we have the output. So the text that I chose was about 1,500 words, 7,400 characters, and 185 sentences. So there are approximately 2.9 sentences per paragraph, which is actually rather short, 8.3 words per sentence, and characters per word here. And now at the bottom, we have our Flesch reading ease and our Flesch-Kincaid grade level score. So actually, this text should be very easy for you guys because it is coming out with a higher number, 73.5 for the Flesch reading ease, which indicates slightly easier, and the Flesch-Kincaid grade level is only for grade 5 in the United States, which means that most children in 5th grade should be able to comprehend this text. So I would report these values into my text analysis worksheet. Now, if you do not use Microsoft Word, there is another way that you can get it, and I'm going to refer you here to www.readabilityformulas.com. I already have it pulled up here, and you'll see you'll have an automatic readability checker. And what we'll need to do is actually copy and paste our text. So let me do that briefly. And I will go ahead and paste it here. To make sure I am human, I'll click the box and then I will check my text readability. Then you will see that we get both the Flesch Reading Ease score, just slightly different, 74.1, the Flesch-Kincaid grade level of 5.2. And to get the actual word statistics, you can click here on Show Word Statistics, and you'll find the total number of words, again, the average number of words per sentence, etc., total number of syllables, which could all be useful in helping you decide whether or not your text is appropriate for your particular audience. So after we have calculated our readability statistics, we want to take a look at the vocabulary in our text, because we want to make sure that our students can understand, hopefully somewhere between 95 and 98% of the words in the text. And to do this, we are going to use an online tool called LexTutor. So I'm going to, again, go back to the internet to www.lextutor.ca, which I have pulled up for you here. You're going to see Complete Lexical Tutor and a screen that looks something like this. You then are going to find where it says Vocab Profile. That's what we are most interested in. So I click there, then I'm going to click on Classic. Now, you'll see a page that looks a little messy, but what you'll do here, you can read the instructions, but essentially you're going to paste your text over the instructions. So now I have my text. I could put the title in here as well if I want. And then it's all the way on the right, the yellow window, the yellow button, and it says Submit Window. So I will go ahead, submit my window. And the output should look something like this. What we'll see is that we have the approximate percentage of words that fall within the first 1,000 words, okay, of the academic word list, followed by the total percentage that falls within the first 2,000 words. And I think briefly I must have not clicked. I want to make sure here it's Classic. I apologize. If you notice up on the top right, to make sure that red is in the Classic, I'm just going to submit this window again. And there we go. This is going to look a lot more like the chart on the text analysis worksheet. So you have the total number of words that fall within the first 1,000 most familiar words in English, followed by the percent of words that falls within the next 1,000, or the first 2,000 most frequent words in English. Then you have the percentage of words that comes from the academic word list, followed by the percentage of words that are not on any of those lists. And as you scroll down, you're going to see a very colorful picture, which will give you a sense of which words are falling on which list. So you'll see that the words in blue come from the first 1,000 most frequent words list. So we have flowers, was, what, 40, she, was, woman. So very common words in English. The green words would be the next 1,000 most frequent words. Our yellow words come from the academic word list, so category, inspector. And the off-list words, if I look, you'll see a lot of them are actually names or French words. So we have Madame Chalon, Cleopatra, Miron is the last name of the inspector, and some other more difficult words. So the task for you at this point would be to use LexTutor to complete this chart under number 4 on the text analysis activity. In the first column, you would put the percentage of K1 words, the percentage of K2 words, the percentage of academic word list words, and then off-list words. And in each of the next columns, I ask you to list some potentially difficult words from the K2 and AWL sections in this middle column, and the some difficult words from the off-list words that may require some additional explanation. Once you have done that, you're then going to take a closer look at 5 of the words that you found from the K2 or academic word list, the off-list words, and then go ahead and look at the context around the word. And then I'd like you to consider whether or not you think that context would be helpful to your students in understanding the word. Okay? So this procedure will give you a better idea of which vocabulary words you may want to pre-teach from your text or possibly gloss, so that way your students will have an easier time understanding the material. So after you've completed the vocabulary profile with questions 4 and 5, you'll be done with that text analysis activity, and I would love for you to send it to me by email. So for Monday, go ahead and finish the text analysis activity. You'll be reading Aebersold and Field, Chapter 7. We're going to move into a deeper discussion of vocabulary. Then I'd also like you to continue thinking about the text you might like to use as the basis for your lesson plan. Maybe you really like the text that you used for the text analysis activity, and if so, that's great. But if the text turned out to be not, maybe appropriate for your target audience, or if you just want to explore some different options, that's okay too. Also, try and consider whether or not you would like to do your first micro-teaching online or face-to-face. When I see you again next week, we're actually going to start to choose groups for this micro-teaching, and I'll need some volunteers to be the first individuals to practice a part of their lesson through our synchronous online platform in Zoom. So thank you very much for listening. Please email me if you have any questions as you go about analyzing your text, and I will see you via Zoom on Monday morning. All right, have a great day. Bye.